Show me a sign. Anne Claire Lizotte, Chapter 26. When Miss Topp shakes me awake in the morning, I startle. I wonder if it's different for hearing people who must come awake slowly to the sounds of the morning. She smiles and nods. I wait for her to box my ears or to drag me down to a waiting pile of unwashed dishes. So I'm surprised when she pours fresh water into my basin, and even more when I'm given a plate with oysters and hare. Not hare. Hare like rabbit. Back then they ate that pretty regularly. I eat quickly. After stoking the fire and drawing the heavy drapes, Miss Topp exits. I get out of bed. I feel no vibrations through these thick walls, not through the floors with their heavy rugs. Occasionally, I sense a small shudder as a door is closed forcefully. Are others here held against their will? Are there cries of insane all around me? I shiver and wrap my shawl tighter. Miss Topp enters again, and before I peek into the hall, she quickly closes and locks the door behind her. She lays new clothes on the bed. She looks at me boldly and holds up a petticoat. I decide not to struggle, and I allow myself to be outfitted in the red gown, complete with stays, matching shoes with paper inserts, and an elegant felt hat. A petticoat is like a fluffy layer that goes under a dress, like back in the day that made their dresses fluff out. Why all this finery? It feels like a costume. From Andrew's written rules on the Defiance, I assume I'll be poked and prodded by more cold hands, and who knows what else. Miss Topp looks behind her and quickly rushes out. She must have heard a sound beckoning her. She exits through a small gap between the door and the door frame. I see the handle rattle to ensure that it's locked. I cross the room and I look out of the barred windows. Beacon Hill lives up to its name. It's a hilly place with stretches of land and trees. A fresh snow spreads out like a white blanket brushed to a fine nap. It must have been a pasture land in the past. It resembles Chilmark more than anything I've seen in this city. In the distance, I glimpse at a massive structure made of brick with a huge golden dome. It's not as picturesque as Faneuil Hall, but equally impressive. I wonder if it's a grander version of our meeting house. Unlike Mrs. Muffin's, with its comings and goings of all hours, Dr. Minot Street is distant and silent. I don't see many residents bustling to and fro, and I've never experienced such physical isolation. Quiet within, quiet without. I press my face against the bars, imagining the details that I cannot see. Are there trails of deer and other animal footprints? It suddenly occurs to me that all I survey was once Indian land. Miss Hammond had taught us that Massachusetts nation had many sachemships before the white settlers arrived. Outbreaks of smallpox devastated their numbers. Does that mean that this peaceful winter landscape also serves as a graveyard? Where are the survivors? I turn back to the room and I explore the bureau drawers. Inside are linens that would make Mrs. Skiff burn with envy. They were so fine and smooth to the touch, impeccably ironed and folded. In the bottom drawer, carefully tucked under a sheet, I find a set of carved wooden toys. With delicate hands, I pick up Noah's Ark, and I think of Reverend Lee's sermon. I run my hand along the bright yellow paint on a duck with wheels, and its cord for pulling. Such fine wooden toys made with great craftsmanship are not meant to be hidden away in a drawer. I turn the duck over in my hands, and something falls into my lap. It's wrapped with a dainty handkerchief with the initials A.M. sewn into it. Inside, I feel flat oval size of an egg, and I unwrap it. A cameo! I have rarely seen anything so elegant in my life. A cameo is a necklace, and it's about the size of an oval, and she's going to describe it. They were very popular back in the day. One side is ivory, painted with the cherubic likeness of a girl only a little younger than I am. She has rosy cheeks and a cloud of dark hair surrounding her face. I replace the cameo in the drawer. Did my clothes belong to this girl? Is this room hers too? I think of how Mama keeps George's room, just as he left it. She would never let another soul occupy it. Just then the door flies open. Andrew seizes me by the arm and leads me toward the door. I lag behind but don't resist. The first 2 doors we pass are open. One of them is the water closet where I bathed. It's an old-fashioned term for a bathroom, a water closet. Another is a bedroom smaller than mine. It's bright and tidy. The rest of the 3rd floor appears unoccupied. Perhaps this is not an asylum after all. If it's a personal residence, it's larger than the largest home on the island. Dr. Minot must be a very prestigious man. But if this is his home, where's his family? We descend the curved staircase, and I realize that I'm being taken to that room with the cold table and the instruments. I dig in my heels. Andrew pulls me roughly by my elbow and shoves me ahead of him. When we enter the front room, Dr. Minot seems taken aback. His sharp gaze softens, and I watch as he clasps his hands and wrings them. Is it the clothes? He gestures for me to sit on the table. My legs swing nervously. Andrew stands to one side, his gaze warning me not to embarrass him. Dr. Minot pushes against the roof of my mouth with his index finger and his middle finger. It makes me gag, but I decide it would be unproductive to bite him. He follows my vocal cords down to my chest. I blush and look away. He moves 2 fingers back and forth in front of my eyes to see if I follow them. Then he moves my lips open and closed, like a doll. He traces my jawline. Miss Topp busies herself with the wood stove, but also watches us. Dr. Minot bends down to look into my eyes, and I try to make my gaze as intelligent as possible. I search his face. After a few moments of mutual staring, he looks away. He signals for me to stand and twirls 2 fingers on his right hand for me to turn around. He feels my back, from my neck to my rear. What notions they have about deafness. I face him and I point to my ears to indicate that is my only peculiarity. That makes him stroke his chin and he seems to chuckle. Andrew steps closer and talks rapidly. I imagine he is pompously interjecting his observations. Dr. Minot gestures and leads Andrew away. Standing at the windows with his arms crossed, he calmly listens to Andrew, who in comparison appears like a rabid dog frothing at the mouth. The doctor lays his hands on Andrew's shoulder to steady him and speaks to him directly. I wish I knew what they were saying. Miss Topp leads me back to my room, and before ascending the stairs, I glance back at the front door. I must attempt an escape before I lose my wits. I'm certain that Mama and Papa are despairing, not knowing my fate, though Mama's words on my last night still haunt me. With these thoughts and feelings worrying my mind, I fall into a fitful sleep. I don't know how many hours have passed when Miss Topp returns with a slice of meat pie for supper. I sit up and gobble it quickly. As she stokes the hearth fire, she watches me. Our eyes meet. She smiles. I smile back. Might she help me? She stands, and before she can leave, I make the sign for dipping a quill pen into an inkwell for writing with paper. She repeats my sign, but does she understand the meaning? She smiles ruefully and shakes her head. My heart sinks. Has Andrew told Dr. Minot that I'm a half-wit who's not to be trusted or believed? There must be another way. I try signing. Please, please. My face shows my desperation. She repeats the sign and imitates something of my facial expression. Is she connecting 2 words that I sign? I am stolen, and I must return to my family. Again, she repeats it back to me. She nods and waits for me, but it's clear she doesn't know what I've said. Deflated, I drop my hands. Miss Topp glances at a small bell hanging near the ceiling beside the bed. Someone must have rung it. She half curtsies and bobs, quickly exiting and locking the door behind her. I wash my hands and face in the basin, and I look out the windows and pray for some sign that I will one day be home again. I swear I see a man in a cap staring up at the window. Is it only wishful thinking that he sees me? I'm starting to get hopeful, but I don't know how it ends.